When it comes to online family trees, there are a lot of different places to choose from on where you'd want to put yours. And today we're going to take a look at one of those. It's wikitree.com. And if you'd like to know more about what it is and what it can do for you and how you can use it, stay tuned because we're going to be talking to Chris Whitten, the president and founder of WikiTree. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate you having me here.
I'm so glad to have you here today as well. We are always interested in those websites that are going to help us build out our family tree, learn more about our family history. And WikiTree has been doing that for several years. Tell people about what you do at WikiTree.
So WikiTree is completely free. It's open to everybody. It's a community, like really more than a website. It's a genealogy community. So it's all for collaboration. We're growing a single family tree. We like to say it's not your tree or my tree. It's our tree. It's a tree we all share. So it's sort of like, a lot of people are familiar with the family search tree. It's somewhat like that. There's also Genie and a few others around the world that are doing this single family tree idea where everybody collaborates in one environment. What sets WikiTree apart, I think, is really that we are a community. It's very much a supportive group. We place a big emphasis on sourcing. So we're the most accurate single family tree available. And we have a lot of fun.
That sounds terrific. And I know that for many people, it makes them happy when they hear that there is that emphasis on sourcing. Of course, with family trees, we worry about if we get connected with a tree that isn't correct, then we have more problems than we started with. Tell us a little bit more about that. What are some of the mechanisms on your website that help and facilitate the sourcing of the information that's going into the trees?
Well, first and foremost, we ask that every piece of information that somebody puts on WikiTree has a source. So even if you're saying, this is from my Aunt Sally, or this is the family tree that was handed down to me, you have to at least say where it came from. And then that gives people a starting point for the collaboration so that if somebody else then comes along and says, well, you know what, I have different information. And, what's your source? What's your source? And you can compare and come to a conclusion.
So that's interesting. That does sound a bit like the family search tree in terms of it being one tree. Does that create any other challenges? What if people disagree about the information that they're putting on?
Oh, yeah. People disagree all the time. I mean, that's human beings get together and try to work together, and they will argue and have problems. Probably one of the most really special things about WikiTree is this culture that we've developed over the years. Because we've been around 14 years and it's very much community based. Like, I don't know if I mentioned, it's totally free for everybody. And we don't have any full-time employees. This isn't run by this big team of people. It's almost entirely volunteer based. The team we have is just part-time and there to support the community. So there is a whole set of policies and procedures that's developed over the years from the ground up to work out problems like this.
That's really unique and it sounds very special. How did you decide from the beginning that free was going to be the price? And how do you, keep the lights on when you do it free? What's the model there?
It has been challenging at times, but for the past, the first 7 years I did this, and it was a struggle, and we quite honestly lost money. But we figured out we had to reach a point where we're getting enough visitors that we can pay for ourselves with advertising. And so we now get about 1.5 million visitors a month. And so we do have the big advertisers. Like if you come on WikiTree, you'll see MyHeritage, Ancestry ads, ads for DNA tests. But if you sign our honor code, if you register as a member and sign our honor code, the ads essentially disappear. So members don't even see ads. And non-members, the ads they see are not as offensive as what you see on a lot of places out there on the internet. So really, it's just a balance that we had to reach, and we reached it years ago. So now it's quite comfortable where the community, doesn't even have to see the ads, and it's all free for everybody.
Oh, that's great to know. So I imagine you do get lots of people who are first-time visitors. You're popping up perhaps in Google search results. What do you recommend is the best way to get engaged with the website? Do you jump right in? I know you get the free account. What do we do next?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably the biggest complaint about WikiTree is that it can be overwhelming. Because it's a very large community and it's evolved over a long time, it's very, elaborate. Like there are there's just thousands of little corners of WikiTree where you have people, collaborating on their, Mayflower ancestors over here, or, working on translating, obscure Latin documents over here. There are a lot of independent developers who have created tools that work with WikiTree. And so some of those can be, a little bit complicated and intimidating. So we try to keep it all simple, but we do realize that it can be a bit much for the new user. So really the first thing you do is you just register, just log in, and you get that free guest account. And if you want to put something on your profile, you upgrade that to what we call a family member account. And that's just, one more step. A lot of us have family member accounts for our family members. So the third step is to sign that honor code that I mentioned before. And that's just these 10 basic principles. Things like saying we cite sources. That's number one. We collaborate. We work together. We give credit when credit is due. We respect copyrights. We respect privacy. So it's this very simple, 10-point honor code. You read it in 2 minutes. And as long as you agree with that, you say yes, and then you move forward to the next step. And if you want help, when you want help, it's there. There's this really vibrant community in the discussion forum. There's live online chat. There are video chats you can do. There are one-on-one personal mentors you can get. There are training programs in various projects. So as involved as you want to be in whatever areas you want to be involved in, you can. I just recommend taking it one step at a time and trying not to get overwhelmed.
Right. I know many people will have, software that they use on their computer, then they're building a family tree. What's the balance between the two? So you want to be involved in the community, which sounds terrific, and there's tons of support there, and you are benefiting from this collective knowledge, if you will. Is there a way to maybe export portions of it that you want to have in your own database? How do those things interact with each other?
Well, you can. We do have a GEDCOM import export capability. So I'm sure a lot of your listeners know what GEDCOM is. That's this terrific standardized format developed many years ago by Family Search and the church. So that standard is almost universal. So whatever program you're using or website you're using will almost certainly allow you to import and export trees in this format. So because it's a completely collaborative environment where we're all working together, you can't simply keep your tree in sync with WikiTree because that would involve like overwriting what other people have done. Really, like if you could just click a button and import your whole tree, that would end up creating these records that would overwrite the collaborative work. So the export is just like it works anywhere else. Like if you want to download a tree, you can. If you want to upload, you just have to do it one profile at a time. So what we do is you would upload your GEDCOM and it would say, oh, you know what, this looks like, the 1,000 people in your tree, of those 100 seem to already exist on WikiTree. So take a look at these potential matches. And by the way, that's a great way to do a quick search if you want to see if your ancestors are already on WikiTree. So you get this GED compare process, we call it, and you can look one at a time, left and right side. Here's what's on WikiTree, here's what's in your system. Do you want to move this? Do you want to move that? And then, you would cite your sources at the bottom.
Okay, interesting. Now you mentioned search, and when we go to the homepage, we see that we can search. There's a first name, last name. There's letters for the last name. We can do surname searches. Does WikiTree support any other kind of searching or search operators? Is there a search help page to help us make sure that we're finding what we want to find?
Sure. If you go ahead and just try a search, and like you said, on wikitree.com, you'll see it right there. If you don't enter anything, if you just click the search button, you would be taken to the search page that has more advanced options on it and has all kinds of help links. And if you're looking for somebody and you can't find them, or you're unclear on how to use the search engine, click over to the forum and just ask.
Excellent. So we can just search. I just did it now. Just click the search button, and that did bring us to a form. So there's a lot more options than just what appears on the homepage. That's great. Now, I also noticed that on the homepage, it said something about DNA connections, and people are definitely interested in DNA, and it's the way it intersects with genealogy. How does that work on WikiTree? What should we be looking for in terms of our DNA tree test connections?
So DNA for us is a way to verify the tree that we're growing. The basic work always has to be done, in the traditional way, right? Like, genealogy is grown in the way we've always done it, through records. That's the only way you're going to get names. But that, traditional genealogy research can then be verified or disproven with DNA. And so that's what a lot of members do on WikiTree. And so we use DNA. We facilitate this a little bit in some interesting ways that are done nowhere else. So on every single profile, every person profile, every ancestor, every cousin, where a DNA test or more than one DNA test has been taken, which could help verify connections to that ancestor, it'll show that. So it'll say, Lisa Louise Cooke has taken, an Ancestry.com test, and it's on GEDmatch. And Chris Whitten has taken a DNA test on MyHeritage, and it's also on GEDmatch. Click here, and you can compare those two. And that'll take you right to GEDmatch, where you can look to see if we match the way that we should. And on that profile, on like let's say we're first cousins, and so we share a grandparent, it'll say then that you and I would expect to share, 12% of our DNA. So if we then go to GEDmatch and we don't share 12%, that's a red flag, or if we do, that's a big step to confirmation.
Great. And finally, I want to ask you about privacy, because it mentions privacy on your site as well. And I know that's on the forefront of people's minds. What kind of privacy controls can people expect at WikiTree?
We take privacy really seriously. To me, and especially to the non-genealogist family members, if you can't connect living people to the tree, it loses a lot of its family history, loses a lot of its interest. So we need to be able to connect living people, and we want to include family photos, photos of living people. But if you're doing that, you need privacy controls. So profiles have 7 different levels, and you have some option about the customizing that. If you have somebody who is not a WikiTree member, but they're living, they have to be unlisted. We have this privacy level called unlisted, and that essentially means that their information cannot be found on WikiTree except by you and your family members that you specifically put on what we call the trusted list. And then we have, 4 different levels of private, private but with a public biography, private but with a public tree. And so these are all levels that you can choose if you're a member about, your own profile. And then, for every non-living person, the recently deceased can be private, but once somebody was born 100 years ago or 150 died 100 years ago, born 150 years ago, they have to be fully open. They have to be, fully collaborative. So every profile has those 7 privacy levels. You have a fair amount of control on your modern family history about what's private and what isn't. But then for the sake of collaboration, the deeper ancestry is, it's meant to be broad collaboration, because that's really what WikiTree is all about.
Wonderful. Well, it's wonderful to hear all about WikiTree, and I can't let you go without asking you, what do we need to know, or what should we keep in mind? What is your best advice for us as we make the most out of using the website?
Just come try it. It's free. You have nothing to lose. And there's a community of people to support you.
I like that idea. The fact that you're going to find other friendly genealogists who have the same interest in family history as we do. That's a nice place to be. All right. Well, it's wikitree.com. And Chris Whitten, thank you so much for joining us here today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks so much for joining me for this video. I hope that you feel like you understand WikiTree a whole lot more. You can go check it out and see if it's right for you and your family history research. And I hope you feel like that Genealogy Gems YouTube channel is right for you and your research. Do me a favor, click the subscribe button. What that does is it puts us in your library, or I don't know what they call it these days here on YouTube, but basically in your favorites list. And it makes it really easy to find us again, and also to have our upcoming videos end up in your YouTube feed. So we really appreciate that. And it supports us. So it helps other genealogists find our channel. And I'd love to hear from you. Have you used WikiTree? Do you have a success story? Do you have a problem story? We'd love to learn from each other. So head down to the comments below and leave us a comment and let us know what your experience with wikitree.com is. And as always, I hope that you'll just stay in touch with me in general. And the best way to do that is over at my website, genealogygems.com. And on the homepage, click that red newsletter button. So the newsletter comes out once a week, each week, and it gives you all the latest information on the new videos, the Genealogy Gems podcast show, and everything else that we have going on here to help you be successful in learning more about your family history. Thanks so much for watching, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.